Venice Beach, blessed sea air.
While it feels like eons after it was first announced, Dead Island is finally here. And if you haven't yet had your fill of zombie games, or maybe you've never played a zombie game in the past, then Helle, as Dambuster Studios are calling it, makes for this sun-soaked, zombie-bashing playground, armed as you are with a wild array of weaponry. Has it been worth the wait though? That's the question. Dead Island 2 picks up as a bunch of survivors try to make their escape from an overrun LA, taking the last flight out of the quarantined metropolis. Of course, things don't go quite to plan. You crash, you get bitten, and then you luckily discover that you're not only immune, but are granted superpowers by the zombie virus. While this is a sequel and it does have some ties back to the original games, such as the reappearance of Sam B, it really feels like a full reboot as you chase the promise of a vaccine, you try to get survivors to safety, and you uncover the background of the outbreak and the government and the military's inevitable role in its disastrous fallout. There's some twists along the way, but this is retreading such familiar zombie apocalypse ground, and it feels like it's going through the motions as it does so, though there is a more up and offbeat tone throughout. There's plenty of larger-than-life characters, if they're a little bit trope-filled at times, and there's some bizarre and fun elements like the army trying to melt zombies in acid pools. Given the heat that you typically get in LA, I'm sure that smells absolutely lovely. If you were hoping for a big open-world rendition of LA to carve your way through, then this is not it. The city has been broken up into a dozen smaller locations, featuring its landmarks and most famous neighbourhoods. There's Bel Air and Beverly Hills, there's a pastiched Hollywood backlot, and once you get downtown, there's wide open boulevards, the iconic Santa Monica Pier, and more. There's moments where this feels like an open world and you diverge a little bit off the beaten path, or you head off on to do a side mission. But it's often a more linear feeling game than that, as you follow that main path through the story with the yellow dots on the HUD leading the way. The real meat of the game though is the combat, and it's as weighty, visceral and enjoyable as ever. You can acquire guns that do have some use at times, but really Dead Island 2, just as with the original, is all about its sensationalized melee combat. There's a gruesomely detailed damage model that has been branded as flesh, and this emerges as you slice and dice and bash and mash the zombies that you come up against. You're flaying flesh and carving off limbs to reveal the skeleton and organs that are still intact, before executing excessive finishing moves that see you cut them in half or punch through a face, or if you're running in with a dropkick or wielding a massive hammer, you can send them flying across the world. It's slapstick comedy violence as opposed to being gross out gore. As you get more and more powerful, so do the zombie dangers that you face. After starting off with basic shamblers, there's then faster runners, hulking crushers, screamers, and others that have powerful abilities. Even into the final third of the game, Dead Island 2 continues to dole out new special zombies, trying to mix things up a little bit as you get stuck in. Each one introduced as part of a fun boss battle that helps to punctuate the story. It does help to add another extra little ingredient each time, though it is also fair to say that the big brutish crushers appear quite often as you play. Thankfully, to combat these, you quickly learn how to craft the ridiculous and over-the-top weapons that have become synonymous with Dead Island and Techland's spiritual successor series, Dying Light. Of course, strapping some batteries to a machete will make it into a lightning sword, and this bag of random junk that you've picked up along the way will make that fire axe into an axe of fire. That is, if you manage to hunt down the necessary blueprints for all of the mods and upgrades. Most of them, though, will appear on the critical path through the game. Elemental damage plays a huge role in what can often be a more considered approach to combat. As you fight them, yes, you can wade in and just wail on the enemies, but you can also make use of pools of water, leaking gas canisters, and your throwable curveballs to tackle multiple enemies at once. Electrocution is particularly handy as an elemental status effect for freezing enemies in place while you continue to dish out damage. Just be careful that you're not stood in that pool of water as well. Dead Island 2 eventually takes it a few steps further than that though, feeding off the zombification effect for later weaponry mods. Your character abilities are also augmented by the zombie virus coursing through their veins, eventually building up into the rage that sends them into a zombie-tearing frenzy for a few moments. Each character has got a pair of innate abilities and strengths in combat. Danny, who I played as through the game, is all about heavy attacks and dishing out critical damage. But aside from those innate skills, you've then got a card-based skill system that gradually opens up, giving you choices over character abilities as fundamental as whether you can block an attack or dodge it, while other areas will give you incremental perks or delve into a little bit of risk and reward, as, for example, a dropkick that can dish out fire damage will drain your health in the process. This can all be changed on the fly, so coming up to a boss encounter, for example, I would shelve the cards that gave perks for repeated zombie kills in favour of getting health back for a successful dodge. There's action RPG roots underneath all of this, so reaching a new area means that zombies are higher leveled and tougher, and you then need to try to level up and you need to improve your weaponry and skills in order to combat that. But the ebb and flow for the amount of damage that zombies can soak up at the times, it does still feel a little bit unusual as it ebbs and flows through the game. It's definitely worth doing the odd side mission to help boost your XP to even just jump one level, but you'll also need to make sure that you're regularly stripping down and replacing your augmented weapons so that they're always dealing high damage. This is the kind of game that is also at its best in co-op, letting you ramp up the silliness, combine over-the-top abilities, pick each other up if you're downed, and generally just wailing upon your enemies like you're slapping pool cues off an undead barman's head while Queen is blaring on the jukebox. There's just a few wrinkles and limitations to the 3-player co-op that got on our nerves while playing, though they are relatively slight in the grand scheme of things. Firstly, there's no cross-platform co-op at launch at least, despite leaning on Epic Games' infrastructure for online play. And within cross-generation play, the base Xbox One and PlayStation 4 cannot host co-op, only join sessions. The more annoying point for us though was that while level scaling is in effect, you cannot join a game save where the progress is beyond your own character's save point. If you're playing with friends, you better keep a save in lockstep with them, or you'll end up repeating the same levels and areas 3 times over, for example. I do get the desire for creators to keep the integrity of their narratives, but at the same time, this is just a daft, schlocky zombie basher. Pop up a warning? Yes, but let us overrule that and play together anyway. If we don't care about the story, we should be able to carry on. And this will absolutely become more relevant if you're coming back to the game a second or a third time and playing with other friends. All in all, Dead Island 2 does a great job of reanimating this dormant zombie battling series with the gore-filled combat and the excessive weaponry that goes well with the oversaturated LA setting. It's an enjoyable romp and it's a pretty solid game as a whole, but at the same time, it ironically feels like it's playing it a bit safe. Thanks for stopping by to check out our review. If you have enjoyed it, please do the usual YouTube things of clicking like, subscribe, the bell icon for notifications. You know how it goes these days. Hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye.
What? No buried treasure. Just a food critic needing a rescue.